so we want to make sure that we move swiftly through this. We are so grateful to have all of you here today. My name is Carol Silver Elliott. I'm the President and CEO of the Jewish Home Family. And we feel so strongly about elder abuse and elder abuse prevention. And to have all of you here, so many people representing the community, is really an extraordinary thing for us. We all know, I think today, June 15th, is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And it's a day that we take a moment, and you notice that purple is the color of elder abuse awareness. So you can see that our team, by and large, is in purple, yay. And if you're not in purple, we have purple ribbon pins out on the table that you are welcome to take and wear. We'd love for you to do that. We also have some educational materials out there that we hope you will avail yourselves of. Before I introduce our panelists, and they're each going to speak for a few minutes and then have an opportunity to answer questions, I want to tell you just for a minute about our involvement here at the Jewish Home Family with elder abuse prevention. Some of you have heard us talk about this, some of you have not, so bear with me if you already know all of this information. I think we are all well aware that elder abuse is a huge problem, not just in the United States, but around the world. But in the United States, estimates are that there are between 3.5 and 5 million victims of elder abuse every year. And we also know that a very, very small number of these people are ever identified or receive any kind of help. Many of these cases go unreported and unrecognized, and people live out their lives in ways that none of us would like them to experience. We got involved in the elder abuse movement about a year ago when we opened SeniorHaven. See, it's SeniorHaven Center for Elder Abuse Prevention. At the time that we opened SeniorHaven, we were the 14th shelter in the country, and we continue to be the only shelter in the state of New Jersey. So what does elder abuse shelter mean? And is 14 really an adequate number when we think about 5 million victims in the United States? Of course it's not. Shelter for us means that if an individual over the age of 65 is the victim of any form of abuse, whether it's physical abuse, social, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and as we all know, unfortunately, almost every case has financial abuse as an element of it, we have a place for them to come to receive shelter for 90 to 120 days within the walls of one of our facilities or within the walls of one of our partner facilities. Why shelter within the walls of a long-term care facility or an assisted living facility? Because the reality is that our older adults will not do well in the traditional shelters for victims of domestic violence. Those shelters oftentimes are filled with women and young children. Many of them have difficult stairs to climb and shared restroom facilities and those kinds of things. And a lot of these victims need the care and services and support that we already have. This is the work that we do every day. So to bring a victim into a long-term care setting or assisted living setting and provide them with services is a logical thing. The first shelter in the country that was focused on elder abuse was at the Weinberg Center at the Hebrew Home at Riverdale, and they've been open now for 11 years. They are really our partners in all of this. They're partnered with all of the shelters. We meet together monthly on the phone and annually in a symposium because our goal really is to raise the level of awareness about elder abuse, about identifying issues, and helping people to react in a way that helps our older adults live out their years in safety and dignity. We have lots of friends here today. APS is represented, our friends from SAFE. We have people from Bergen County. We've got lots of folks who are here to be able to help and be a part of the support. It's not about the Jewish Home providing shelter. It's about all of us working together to make this community a safer place for our older adults. One of the things that I heard Kathy Greenlee say, Kathy Greenlee is the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, years ago that has stuck with me. She talked about the system of shelters for victims of domestic violence in this country. And she said the system of shelters, which is a really solid system, was built out of the efforts of survivors. But our older adults who are victims of violence, victims of elder abuse, are not going to be able to create a system of shelters. Either they're not going to survive this, or if they do, they will not have the wherewithal to create the system that will help elders be safe. It's up to all of us to do that, and I am so glad that you're here today to be a part of that effort. And I want to recognize Tracy Zer, who's in the back, who's one of our freeholders. We're thrilled that she's here. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know that she too has taken a strong stand about preventing elder abuse and making sure that our community is a safer place for all of our older adults. So I'm going to introduce, so our format here this morning, I'm going to introduce our panelists. Each of them will give you a short presentation, and then at the end of that, we will have an opportunity for questions and answers. So I'm going to start from this end, but they can fight over who goes first. This is Nancy Mackowiak from Sussex Bank. Ms. Mackowiak has been the Compliance and Community Investment Act Officer for Sussex Bank since 2012 and has over 25 years of banking and risk management experience. She has helped individuals and companies investigate countless cases of fraud and identity theft, working to resolution with local, state, and federal authorities. Based on these experiences, Ms. Mackowiak is certain the best defense against fraud is education, and is pleased to share some of this information with you today. Sitting next to Nancy is Michael Lissner. Michael received his JD from Brooklyn Law School in 1982. He is admitted and qualified as an attorney and counselor for the Supreme Court of the United States, is further licensed as an attorney and counselor at law in the states of New York and Florida, and is a member of both the New York County Lawyers Association and the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. He serves as chair of the Blue Card Incorporated, a national not-for-profit organization that provides financial aid to needy Holocaust survivors, and has been a faculty member for many years at the Jewish Association for Services for the Aged in New York City. Michael has lectured extensively about elder law, estate planning, and planning for survivors of the Holocaust and their families. Michael, thank you for joining us. Next to Michael is Detective Pete Martin. Pete is one of our local law enforcement who's a dear friend to our organization, particularly in Rivervale. Pete is a detective with the Rivervale Police Department and has been with the department for 21 years, assigned to the Detective Bureau for 7 years. He was born and raised in Rivervale and lives in Hillsdale with his family. Next to Pete is Bryan Brunner. Bryan is a lead clinical pharmacist with IPPC. IPPC is a family-owned and operated long-term care pharmacy servicing healthcare facilities throughout New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. With over 25 years of experience, they are one of the largest independently owned long-term care pharmacies in New Jersey. Why pharmacy? Because pharmacy is one of those places where people can be attuned to an abuse situation that's going on with an older adult. And last but absolutely not least is Dr. Harvey Gross. Dr. Gross is a medical director at the Jewish Home at Rockleigh. He is a family physician in private practice in Englewood, New Jersey. He's board certified in family medicine, certified in geriatrics, and is a certified medical director for nursing home care. He is the chief of the Department of Family Practice at Englewood Hospital in Englewood, New Jersey. Dr. Gross has been listed in the Castle Connolly Guide, How to Find the Best Doctor issues of New Jersey Monthly and New York magazines, but we didn't need those accolades to know that he is the best, so we're grateful to have him here. And we're going to go ahead and start with Nancy. You want to come up, Nancy?
You would kind of think that a bank, what would they know about elder abuse? What would they know?
Nancy, hold the mic up.
I'm sorry. What would someone at a bank know about elder abuse? Well, we have branch people. Our colleagues are at front line. All those statistics that Carol talked about, we're aware of those too. We see every day how many people are victimized, not only older people, but younger people too. We know that 1 out of 25 cases are only the ones that are reported. Vast majority of cases are underreported. Why? People are embarrassed, or they're isolated, or they don't know who to reach out to. It may surprise you to find that one of your best allies is your branch of your bank. That teller who you greet and say hello to every day. Anytime you have a transaction, they get to know you. They ask you questions about how your family is doing and those kinds of things. And we are obligated to say something if we see something. I love the Port Authority saying. I use it all the time. If you see something, say something. We have customers that come in and say, hey, look, I've got this check, and I wasn't expecting it. You know, I want to cash it, and somebody's pressuring me to wire the money right away. Well, we sit down and have a conversation with them and say, okay, if you weren't aware of this check coming, we'll deposit it, but we'll put a hold on the money to protect you and protect us. And that way, if the check is real, in a few days it'll clear and we'll be fine. If it's not real, you won't lose anything. So it's that kind of education, that one-on-one grassroots, that's so important. But underutilized is your banks. And this could be the financial planner and your attorneys too, who are dealing with this. Now in the state of New Jersey, caregivers are required to report if there's elder abuse. The financial side of the house, we have a moral obligation. I'm also, other than the compliance officer, which is basically saying the cop on the beat for the bank, I'm also the CRA officer, Community Reinvestment Act. And what that means is educating those in the community about all kinds of fraud. Today, I want to talk to you about what kinds of things that we see on the bank side. We monitor everybody's accounts. We know about the bad guys who build the bombs and who are the terrorists, and we're looking at that money. But an unintended good consequence of that is we see red flags too. Such things as if somebody has an account they haven't used in a really long time, but all of a sudden we see activity, we'll make a phone call. We'll call the branch and say, hey, do you know Mr. and Mrs. Shaw? Are you aware of what's going on? And the branch people will often know exactly who they are, or they'll know a family member to be able to say, hey, you know what? The daughter came in with a POA. We'll talk to the daughter, or we'll talk to the caregiver. We also have to be real careful because we are aware that the caregivers or adult children can also be a source of that abuse. So we do, if we see that that's not a good alternative, we'll go to Adult Protective Services and we'll call them. Every county has one, every county has an office. On the flip side of that, those offices come to the bank and they will tell us, hey, we're doing an investigation on this customer. We want to know this information about their accounts because somebody has called on behalf of an elderly person. So I'll reach out to the branch and say, hey, we've got this request from Adult Protective Services. What kind of information can we provide to Adult Protective Services that might give some color about these accounts? Something that's not obvious on paper. It's well known banks have security. If we know that there's something going on, we'll offer to Adult Protective Services the camera and the pictures of the people that are coming in. Because many times the teller will say, I'm doing this transaction, but I was not comfortable. And I'll get that phone call 30 seconds after they've walked out the door. They'll try to delay it, and we've taught our people to try to delay it, to talk to a supervisor, to try to pull that person aside to make sure they understand the transaction. Common thing to see, a reliance on cash. If they make a very large cash withdrawal and they want to walk out of the bank with that, we'll slow them down and say, look, anybody who needs the money, we'll take a check. If they insist on the cash, we'll automatically go to local authorities like the police department and say, hey, we've got this person, we know they're coming in, they're going to be walking out with a large amount of cash. Please be present and offer your services to escort them to wherever they're going with that cash, just to give them that extra level of security. These are the things that you and I are aware of, that these are the signs, but people who you interact with might not know that the bank is probably one of your best allies. We might be seeing the financial abuse long before somebody reports the physical abuse or the intimidation and the bullying, because we see those things happening. So I keep going back to that PA, what the Port Authority says. If you see something, say something. Sometimes you just need to say these things out loud, and that's important too. Go to a supervisor, coworker. Hey, something doesn't strike me right. I was talking to someone just a few minutes ago about perception. Don't ignore your gut. It's not really your gut talking, it's your experience talking. So those things are your signs. Also encourage the elder people to tell stories. They're wonderful storytellers. We all know how we all look to a younger generation for that help with technology. Well, now you can go and teach that elder person these stories and have them retell it. And it does two things. Number one, that younger generation, you can teach them something. You can teach them what you found. Hey, I got this phone call saying you were in trouble. It's called the grandparent scam, and I'm sure the police are very aware of this.
You're stealing a lot of my thunder. Thanks for having me. Goodbye.
That's fine, that's fine. I'll keep it down for 2 minutes. But it's the education of that. And I just think that that storytelling that we have amongst our elderly is the most powerful tool. It does two things. It gives them a sense of empowerment to say, hey, I can teach somebody else something. Plus, by retelling that story, it reminds them of those key important moments. So I encourage you to encourage anybody you interact with to tell those stories. Tell the stories you hear today. Tell the stories that you see in the news. I use a website called Nixle. The alerts come through the police department. If you see something like that, say something to them. Anything you can do, get them involved. Bring them out, draw them out. Because we also know that isolation makes them more isolated. I'm going to conclude those remarks with that. If you see something, say something, and encourage that storytelling. I love the stories, and it provides a vital function. And once we get to the question part, if you have any questions, either at the panel or separately, please feel free to come reach out to me. Thank you.
Do you want to go next?
Is that what I jump on?
Go ahead. We're very informal here.
Thank you. Did everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll use it if I need to. I want to start by saying I was a little bit disappointed with how Carol opened by saying that you need to be 65 to qualify under the elder abuse laws. I turned 50 last week. I got my AARP application in the mail, and I was so looking forward to being able to use that to report my ex-wife for the abuse. Apparently that's not going to work out. I just wanted to jump on a couple things that were set up here because from a local law enforcement standpoint, and maybe it's the communities we're from in northern Bergen County, a little bit more affluent, it's very rare that we have obvious, open and close, cut and dry physical abuse cases with our seniors. Maybe it's because the affluency up here, the families are able to afford better health care, better in-home health care than maybe in other parts of the state and other parts of the country. But we see not so many. As a matter of fact, I looked through our records. In my 21 years on the police force, I couldn't find one documented, what turned out to be a legitimate case of actual physical elder abuse. So I'll speak to that for a couple minutes from a theoretical point of view. From a local law enforcement point of view, our reaction to an accusation like that is very similar to children investigations. A lot of times you're dealing with victims that have advocates speaking on their behalf because they're not capable of speaking for themselves, advocates that make decisions on their behalf. We have to pull in other agencies such as APS and the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office Special Victims Unit, who have detectives and investigators specialized in interviewing people with these special circumstances, such as children and the older people. Where we run into our more contact with seniors and the elderly is with scams of that nature. There's lots of scams out there that have been going on for years. A lot of them are called Nigerian scams. They originated years ago out of Nigeria. A group of organized crime started with phone scams, then they became personal one-on-one scams. But one of the larger ones going on right now are the grandparent scams, where somebody will receive a call and say, "Hi, Grandma, I'm at my friend's wedding in Mexico and I got into a car accident." And through the conversation, they'll get the grandmother will be like, "Oh, is this Bobby?" And then all of a sudden it's Bobby. It's, they're able to elicit more personal information. and say the lawyer needs a $2,000 retainer, Western Union, and things like that. And we've picked up a lot of these cases by the banks picking up abnormal withdrawals. We've been notified several times by Rite Aids, Walgreens, establishments that have the Western Union facilities, and that's how these get to us. Unfortunately, most of the time, once the money's gone, once the money is sent, they're gone. These things are, for the most part, untrackable. These are professional, organized crime syndicates all over the world. Usually they're untrackable. So our point, we try to be as proactive as we can with those. We have an officer in our department who's a liaison between our department and our seniors club in town, the Senior Friendship Club. And we have meetings with them twice a year where we serve them dinner. We do summer barbecue, which is coming up. We do a holiday luncheon where we serve them food. But we also, a couple times a year, try to do presentations. Both at their meetings. In Rivervale, we have a building, it's called 521 Piermont Avenue. It's a high-rise apartment building that is mostly, it's not senior housing, but it's mostly occupied by seniors. So every once in a while, we'll try to put together a presentation and do a presentation on the new scams and things like that. Some of the other scams around the county, not so much up here, but Southern Bergen County, Essex County, Hudson County, are what are called distraction scams, where somebody purporting themselves to be a United Water worker will come to the house and say, we have to inspect your meter. And it's usually two people, and they get distracted, somebody else goes in the house and, steals jewelry, steals whatever's available. So we try to educate the seniors mostly through the senior clubs and things of that nature with that information. I just had something else in my mind that I forgot. Completely blanked on that. Anybody have any questions about those, the scams, anything like that? Going with that? Every once in a while we have issues with the financial stuff. We'll get a call from, and more times than not in our communities, it's family stuff.